Level with me. Why do some tables not allow multiclassing? Multiclassing, a valid, established method of building and creating your character and furthering your TTRPG experience. So, why do some DMs not allow it? Is it because of fear of the unknown? Is it because of laziness? Is it because sometimes the player choices just don't really make sense? Personally, I think it's a little bit of all of these reasons, but I'm here to say that as a DM, you should be embracing this aspect of D&D. Multiclassing is there for fun. But before we jump into the video, just a reminder that this table works with shared experience, so any tips, tricks, or thoughts on the subject, leave them in the comments below to dish out some XP to the other players in our community, and I'll be sure to check them out as well. Understanding your character is detrimental to gameplay. We can all agree with that. And the infamous "it's what my character would do" isn't just because chaotic neutral players want a reason to unalive an entire small fishing village. It's because they know what their character would do in any given situation. This is why I think multiclassing is important, and I'll get to it in 1 second. Let's go with a cliche as an example. Your backstory is that your parents were killed by an evil clan that raided your family's village. You managed to escape by hiding in an upturned barrel and waiting for the horrifically common occurrence to pass by. But now, 20 years on, your character has found a child in the middle of a battle hiding away. Whilst the other players might consider the Mind Flayer being the most important thing in the world, with the priority to save the town, your character might actually think, actually, I need to make sure that child is safe because no one else is here to help them. So if you were to have that much of an understanding of your character's backstory, then why wouldn't your dungeon master allow the players to take a second class for their character if there is some logical selection that stems from their past experiences? I'm really trying not to move this hand. I sprained it a couple of days ago. It's good. I also passed my driving test, and now I have a car. Back to the video. I need to stop using this hand. Admittedly, a counter-argument to what I've just said, when I started playing D&D, my first thought when multiclassing was when I created my first character, because I was looking at a fighter, one of the simpler classes for beginners, and my thoughts were just, well, why doesn't everyone take 2 levels in fighter just for the action surge ability? Because, hear me out and please correct me if I'm wrong, level 5 wizard, level 2 fighter action surge, you see what I'm saying, right? Sometimes players look at multiclassing so they can bolster a glaring weakness that their character has, but in doing that, they create a larger branching skill tree for the players to manage. So, if the player, or the DM for that matter, is nervous about having to juggle this blend of classes, then I think the perfect solution is for the 2 of them to collaborate and come up with a smaller selection of feats that the players could take. That way, they get to bolster their character, but don't have 2 different classes to monitor alongside each other. For example, if a wizard wanted to use a melee weapon that's, a bit heavier than a quarterstaff, instead of taking levels in Barbarian, maybe they should take the
Weapons Master.
I doubt they'll even notice.
feat, which would allow them to use martial weapons. But that example of a multi-classing option, stereotypically, wouldn't make sense for a wizard, because let's face it, in-game wizards aren't exactly known for their love of hand-to-hand close combat, steel on shields, are they? No, they're not. So it wouldn't make sense if the wizard picked up a greatsword, a hefty damage dealer, and then suddenly their character is getting their proficiency bonus on their attack. That just wouldn't make sense story-wise, which as a performer would bother me. It just would bother me. And I'm here to try and resolve that. How can we make that multi-classing option or feat selection more immersive? Personally, as a DM, I would be telling my players at session 0 to really think about whether they want to multi-class at some time down the line, because if a player desperately wanted to make that odd multi-classing choice, then I would ask them if it would be okay if we could try and weave it into the plot and the storyline somehow, because then at least it would narratively make sense when suddenly they level up and they have the rage action. I would need to put it in the story just for my own peace of mind. This bit of the script actually came from a comment from Kristen Frosch, so if you do have any tips, tricks, or thoughts on the subjects, leave them in the comments below because I do read them. Anyway, if you're going to pick a second class to take, then how can you make this a plot point? How can it be role-played at the table? Well, maybe you arrange it with the player outside of game that this could be part of an upcoming combat. If the wizard had to deal with close-up combat and was struggling to hold them back, then maybe that could be the stimulus, the catalyst for the character to bring it up with a party member who could help them learn. Maybe the player could bring it up in the next long rest, for example. They've been adventuring for months. This is the way the player talks. He's from Cambridge. That's not in the script. Anyway, they've been adventuring for months now, and I think the Brimblebop the Wizard would have asked Big Neil the Fighter for some weapon fighting tips while they're setting up camps throughout their journey, and then the wizard can practice with that weapon every evening with Big Neil while they set up camp. There's a small narrative link there. It's tenuous, but it's something to explain why the wizard is now using martial weapons. It also offers a little bit of a role play for the players and also gives a reason why the wizard has went and brought a great sword from the blacksmith and then suddenly they are proficient with that weapon. Players, like I said, think about if you want a multi-class ahead of time so you can pitch it to your DM so they can set up these small moments to teach your character how to do the thing that they aspire, that they want to do. That made sense, right? And yes, this might take a little bit more planning and creativity from the Dungeon Master, but isn't that the mantle we all take up when we agree to be the forever DM? Someone save me. Now, I am not an idiot. Some would say. Most would disagree with that statement. But I am well aware that players can make some absolutely bonkers character builds with the right class selection and feat options, and I think that is partly a reason that DMs don't want multiclassing at tables, because I think we can all agree on some level that min-maxing OP character building spotlight wanting players can sometimes ruin the energy at the table, can't they? And it's also this reason, to some extent, that I believe Dungeon Masters ban multiclassing, because it's more for them to, for want of a better word, monitor? It's a discussion to have at session 0, but as soon as the DM says that multiclassing is available, then they've just opened the proverbial Pandora's box of character designs. But denying multiclassing, is it just laziness from the DMs? No, I don't think so. If the DMs are trying to make an interesting, balanced encounter, then it's undeniable that it's easier to plan that encounter around 4 people playing 4 classes rather than 4 people playing 7 classes, and then remembering what features and skills each player has and how many levels they have in each one, because then as the Dungeon Master, you're also thinking, I want them to utilize these weird skills in combat in interesting ways, otherwise they've wasted their choices. And it's just more steps to building an encounter and social interactions for the DM to plan. Sometimes DMs might not allow multiclassing simply because of the length of the campaign. For my first campaign as DM, it was me and a couple of friends, which included a couple of new players, and it was only going to be 12 to 14 sessions, so I didn't want to overload either myself or my players with choices. And this campaign only actually went up to level 7. Yes, we were doing milestone level up, how could you tell? This means that they wouldn't have felt the full benefit of multiclassing, but going forward, I would absolutely love to see some multiclassing at my table and seeing what my friends come up with. So, players, if you do have an idea for a multiclass, but it's never really come up in conversation, you're best to ask your DM first, because if you go planning all these avenues you're gonna go down, and this tree, I'll take this feat, and then this class, and then this subclass, and getting carried away with your absolutely bonkers creations, it could just be shut down, and that's just gonna crush your creativity. Always ask first. Because if I were DM, then you bet your butt I would be a little bit surprised if one of my players said, and then I add sneak attack because I got advantage, because my only response would be, that's odd, because you're a sorcerer. What? Is this because then I'd have to create opportunities for the player to use this new rogue abilities that they've unlocked? Otherwise the player will feel, like I said, like their choice was wasted. As a Dungeon Master, if you're going to allow multiclassing, you have to have confidence, not in your players, but in yourself. As a dungeon master, if you are going to allow multiclassing, then you have to have confidence, not in your players, but in yourself. Like I said, there could be some absolutely chaotic combinations that your players come up with, but you have to trust yourself that you can roll with it, embrace it, and then adapt the story to it. You just have to learn to accept your fate. Learning to accept that will make your games more fun and silly, and your players will take joy in the fact that they think that they've outsmarted you. But as DM, you know that in the long run, you're planning where the campaign's going next, and you can get revenge on your very clever players. And those are my thoughts on multiclassing in D&D. Any tips, tricks, or thoughts, leave them in the comments below to dish out some XP to the other players in our community, and I'll make sure to check them out as well. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next session.